Hey, my video editing online class. So this is me. I'm Jessie. I'm your instructor. We've emailed back and forth maybe, or I've interacted with you in discussions. I'll be the one grading your work. So I've decided to make these videos. They're not as fancy as the other ones. I'm just sitting here in my office, but I'm so used to just teaching the in-class person and talking to people, and sometimes it's easier to just explain things that way. So I'm doing this video to give you an intro to the Premiere Pro workspace. I know the book does that, that's its purpose, but it's almost overwhelming for a beginner. They give so much information. I still want you to read it, it's still required, but I think this is a good little intro of how to get started with your projects. So then, after this, go finish reading the book, and it will probably make a little more sense to you. As you can see here, I use a Mac. In a PC it'll be pretty similar. So the first thing I need you to do before we're starting a project is making sure that you have the footage. Don't just leave it in your downloads folder like it is here. Actually move it into somewhere like your documents, create a file. I like to work with hard drives. I can recommend that if you have one or can afford to buy one. Here I have all my stuff organized. We're going to work with this download right here. I've got my clips in there, and I'm actually going to make another folder. So file, new folder to put these in. So we're going to call it Project 1. And we're going to leave that. And then I'm actually going to move this into the Project 1. And I'm going to rename this Roll Footage. Then I've already clicked Premiere Pro, so we don't have to wait for it to load, but this is the screen that will welcome you. Very important, so if you're opening a recent project, they'll be here, but we're going to start a new one. Here, we're going to name it. So we're going to name it Project 1. Name it whatever you want to. You're the only person who has to find this. So important. I cannot emphasize this enough. You need to tell it where to save, otherwise you're going to lose files. This is how you do that. You click this browse button over here, and then I want to save it in the same place as my footage. I'm going to go to Project 1 here. I'm actually going to go back there. I'm going to make a new folder and call it Premiere Stuff. Now it's going to save all my files associated with Premiere in there. My scratch disks tell me that they're all going to that same as project file, where it is in my hard drive, under Project 1 in Premiere Stuff. Premiere Pro makes its own files, so this is important to know where they are. In case it crashes, you need to know how to find them. So then it opens to Premiere Pro. I'm going to start importing, and the way I like to import is I like to drag my footage in. Super important. Don't drag from your downloads file. Drag from your hard drive or the file you are working from. As you may have already read in the book, or as you will learn in the book, Premiere Pro creates links to things, so it doesn't actually save the footage in Premiere Pro. So you need to have the hard drive plugged in, or whatever you imported the footage from plugged in order for it to work. So while it imports, I'm going to show you a bit of the layout. This is your project finder. This is where you're going to see all your raw footage. Up here is your source finder. This is where you're able to view your raw footage. So now you'll see all of our files are in here. If I double click, it shows up in this source window. So I have a timeline over here, or a sequence, which has nothing on it yet, but this is your canvas. This is where you're going to move clips around, and this is where you're going to watch your timeline. So here's where you can kind of just scroll up and down through the footage over here. If you hover your mouse over it, it will kind of play through the footage. You can play it directly from here, but I like to double click on it and bring it up to here. You can hear it as well. So I'm going to turn that volume down a little bit because this footage is very noisy. Now, to move things onto your timeline where you edit everything together, once double-clicking on it, it will come to the source finder. Then I can hit the in button on my keyboard. And as you can see, my keyboard shortcuts will pop up over here. It's also this button, but use keyboard shortcuts. They speed up your life. And then I'm going to hit the space bar and hit it again for when I want my clip to end. I'm going to hit the O button, and then I'm going to drag it down onto the timeline. Now it has created what's called a sequence. So I'm going to drag a few more guys down onto the timeline just to demonstrate how things work. Now you can see I have something in my program monitor, and here on the timeline, as you can see, my fingers start doing things before my brain and my mouth catch up. Basic things you need to know about this is always make sure when you drag, you're dragging from the center. If you drag from here, nothing is going to happen. As you can see, nothing's going to drag down. But if I drag from the middle, it will take just what's in between that in and out point. Make sure you're not accidentally just dragging down the video or just dragging down the audio. You'll see it comes down in two layers. The top layer is the video, the bottom is the audio. And then I can just play through it by hitting my space bar and watch it over here. Beautiful thing about Premiere Pro is the interface is super intuitive. I know it has all these fancy tools. Honestly, I only use like 3-4 of these. I don't use all of them. You're welcome to learn more about these ripple edit tools and track select. I never really use them. I know some editors who do. As you've noticed from the book, there's 10 different ways to do things on Premiere. I'm just showing you the way that I found to be the most efficient. If you find a more efficient way for you, by all means, go that way. So this is your homeboy. This tool right here is your selection tool. This is where you live. This is how you move things around. So let's say, as you can see, this clip plays before this other one. You can just move it, and now it will play afterwards. Sometimes I use this razor tool, but we're not going to worry about him today, or the text tool. So if you're clicking around and nothing's happening and it's not working right, you're probably on the wrong tool. So switch back to your selection tool, and then we can move these around. A few things about this. So make sure this little magnet is on. It's a snap tool. That way, when you move clips, you'll see they kind of magnet together like this. If you have this off, you'll see you can kind of move it really close without it touching, which looks noticeable right here. But when you've got a bunch of clips on your timeline, you can't see it. And then you end up with these black flashes in your video. You don't want those. So make sure your magnet is on and it will suck together like that. Those are the main things. Make sure that these are all blue, because then it will move down both your video and audio files. Even if you don't think you're going to use the nat sound, so the sound that comes with a B-roll, drag it onto your timeline anyway. It's easy to delete at the end, hard to get back if you actually need it. And for your first projects, you will need it. So that's kind of the workspace over there. Save compulsively, hit Command S or Control S on your keyboard, and make sure you've saved it before you opened it, because it's not like a Word document. It is not like a Word document where you can write the whole paper and save it later. Save it before you start. I'm going to say that again. In that open screen, save it before you start. That way, when you hit Command S, you'll see it's right here where I told it to go. I've already got some files that Premiere Pro has created. These are super helpful if Premiere Pro crashes, or shall I say, when Premiere Pro crashes, you can get your lost autosave over here. This is where you will open your project from. That is the basics of the layout. If you open it and it looks funny for some reason, you may just be on a different layout. We go into these later in the semester, but you want to live in this editing layout for now. Also, don't work from this media browser. You want to import the footage. So don't use this guy. Make sure you're on the bin and you import it into here. Give it time to load. Trust me, it's easier that way. You know, the book talks about Media Browser. If you want to use that workflow, you can, but you need to at least eventually import from the Media Browser like that for the footage that you are using. For your first project, I just want you to get clips onto the timeline, and in the next video, I'm actually going to talk about your first project and how to approach that. Also, before I go, I want to give you a quick tip on how to close Premiere Pro. So hit Command S, make sure your project's saved. You can just right click on Premiere Pro, hit quit, and then to open it again, you open it from wherever you told it to save the first time. So usually under your Premiere stuff file, under that project, wherever you named it, that's where I suggest you open it from file organization. I cannot tell you how important that is. Right now you only have one project, it's not a big deal, but by the end of the semester you're going to have a bunch, and it needs to be easy to find, otherwise your hard drive's going to be a mess. And then when you lose files because Premiere Pro crashes, I can't help you if your hard drive's a mess. So please keep it organized. Look out for the next video. Let me know if you guys have questions.